My name is Marta, and I'm originally from New York City. I reside in the Washington, D.C. area now, and I'm a professional makeup artist.
Perfect. And so you became an Elvis fan more recently, I think you said. So how did you become an Elvis fan?
So Elvis was always in the soundtrack of my life. My mother was from Havana, Cuba, and she was born a few years after Elvis. So as a teenager, she grew up on Elvis, even though she lived in another country and Elvis never went there. American culture pre-Fidel Castro was very popular. So she was a big Elvis fan in the 1950s. She met my father, who was American, Italian American. They got married in Cuba. She moved back to New York with him. And so I grew up, my mother loved music as a Cuban. They loved salsa music. And my mother raised us with a very extensive, diverse musical background. So I listened to everything from the Beatles, the 1950s doo-wop. So Elvis music was always there in the background of my life. And as a teen, the disco era was on the rise, so I really wasn't interested in Elvis music. Um, I I got into Elvis actually from the Elvis movie, but I did not watch the Elvis movie until last year. So I've
Wow.
not been a fan, a huge obsessed fan until 2023. After Lisa Marie Presley's death, I decided to watch the movie and I got a whole different perspective. That last scene where they transition from Austin to Elvis when they're singing, Unchained Melody, I just burst out crying. I mean, even thinking about it, because I saw Elvis. I remember Elvis as a teen. He was hospitalized constantly. There were so many stories in the tabloids of his drug use. And I would always look at him in the newspaper and just feel sad for him. I couldn't explain why. I was only a young teenager, but I always felt sad. And seeing that scene put all the pieces together for me.
And then you have a very unique experience. So you got to do makeup on the Larry King show for about 20 years, or Larry King Live, sorry. And you had the opportunity to meet Lisa Marie Presley. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yes. So, for a lot of younger viewers who don't know Larry King Live, it was a very popular talk show from 1985 to 2010. He was based in the Washington, D.C. area, and he did a lot of remote interviews in New York City. I was working in New York from 1987 to 1991 in New York, and then I moved to Washington, D.C. So I worked on his show when I was a staff makeup artist in New York, as when we would do remote interviews with big stars. And then I worked at the bureau in Washington, D.C. Lisa was here in Washington, D.C. She was promoting one of her records. She was new to recording, and she did the interview. And she came in with an entourage. She was already made up. I did her makeup. I just touched her up and I just got her ready for our cameras and our lighting. But you could see that she was not as comfortable with the interview process as maybe someone else. But I think she did it more like an obligation because she knew, to get into this industry in that day and age. If she was on in 2003, she had to go through the promotional part of her career. So she had to do the interview. But I could see, and you can even see when you watch the video of her interview in the archives, that she was not really super comfortable with the process. And there was even at one point when Larry King was asking her a question and she was like ready to leave the interview. And Larry King was good about like knowing when to not to push and when to not push. So it was a really interesting experience. At the time, I was not an Elvis fan. My mother was. So my mother was waiting for me. She was watching my son. She was babysitting and she was waiting for me by the door when I came in, like, so what was Lisa Marie like? And, I found her to be polite, sweet, guarded, but I didn't get, you don't get always a lot of time to chat with people when you're doing their makeup because sometimes there's, the producers around, there's the production assistants. So they're all talking to them while I'm doing makeup. So I didn't have a lot of conversation with her as with some celebrities I do. And I just felt her to be a little bit guarded, but she was lovely. She was really lovely. And it was, now that I look back, it would have so much more meaning to me now that I am an Elvis fan, that he's been humanized, and I would see it from a very different perspective than I did 21 years ago.
So makeup has definitely played a big part of Elvis's life. You know, whether it was him wearing eyeshadow in the 50s or him dyeing his eyelashes or his eyebrows or his hair black. And actually the what he was dyeing his eyelashes with actually gave him glaucoma and other eye problems. But then also Priscilla's, dramatic eyeliner in the 60s. So what do you think kind of the cultural impact was of Elvis and Priscilla's makeup throughout their lives?
Well, as a teen, Elvis started wearing makeup when he was in high school, and he was bullied for it. He was a visionary. He was so ahead of his time. Today, most men would not go on TV without makeup. And I do makeup on men all the time. But at that time, he was bullied for it. I believe that, some of the idols, some of the people he idolized, which were mostly Hollywood stars. I think Tony Curtis played a large role in him applying makeup on his eyes. He knew it would make him look better on stage. It's like he was a visionary, and definitely, all the things that he was tormented for in high school are what made him a legend and an icon. So I do believe that, he was ahead of his time.
So what's one thing you think that non-Elvis fans should know about Elvis?
I always find non-Elvis fans in my group of friends, and I always find a tidbit to share with them that I know would interest them. So if I'm with my friends from church, I'll talk about his gospel music.
Mm.
I was with a group of people a few days ago that are World War II buffs, and I let them know that Elvis helped one of his fundraising concerts helped them complete the Pearl Harbor USS Arizona. So I will always find something to appeal to whoever it is that I'm with. And that's what I do. I let people know things that they wouldn't know about Elvis, but would be very interesting to them.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I do that same thing too. I always try to find an in. Like Elvis
Mhm.
relate to any people at any time. So I love that.
Yes.
My last question then is, so what does it mean to you to be an Elvis fan today?
What it means to me to be an Elvis fan is really to continue his legacy, because when you really do dig into Elvis, he is like a diamond. He shines so bright and he's so multifaceted that he appeals to so many people for so many different reasons. The gospel singer, the fashion icon, the gorgeous man, the movie star. He was really talented as an actor, especially in his early films, you can really see that. The musician. So I just feel that it's important to share Elvis with other people, especially the younger generation, so that we can keep Elvis's legacy going. And that's what I love about the younger fans. I love that their perspective was Baz Luhrmann's film, and they got to see Elvis as a human being. They got to see all facets of Elvis, and they're such passionate fans. And I love that. And I just think we need to keep Elvis going. So that's what, for me as a fan, I share Elvis with my nieces and nephews, my son, my husband, he's become a fan. Um, just a lot of people that I meet, I just try to share Elvis on my makeup mirror in my makeup studio, which is where I am right now. I have stickers, Graceland, Elvis, and I have Elvis memorabilia all over my studio, and it always is a talking point. People say, "Are you an Elvis fan?" And that's my in. So I share Elvis whenever I can, and that's what being an Elvis fan means to me, just keeping the King's his legacy going.
Awesome. Great. Well, Marta, thank you so much for talking to me today. This was really great. And just hearing your perspective and getting to meet them and meet Lisa Marie and just being able to share your love. I mean, I think it's great that it's hitting people of all ages across all brackets, and I think it's just awesome to continue to hear how people are passing his legacy along. So thank you so much for talking to me today.